in northern Somalia. That will be presented by Mr. Markus Hoehne, who has came all the way from Germany to join us tonight. He's a social anthropologist and a lecturer at the University of Leipzig in Germany. He has been researching conflict dynamics in northern Somalia since 2002 and is the author of Between Somaliland and Puntland. Please welcome him to the stage.
Here, so probably that's interesting for them as well. So I think the first time I came to the region, to northern Somalia, was in 2002, and I spent some time in Hargeisa. Then I went to Erigabo, to Las Anod, and when I was in Las Anod, I immediately realized that there's some serious political tension in the region in northern Somalia. So if you travel from Hargeisa to Las Anod, it's roughly 500 kilometers, but you really travel from Somaliland, which is the hub of secessionist identity, to Somalia, which back then already in 2002 was the hub of Somalinimo. So it was the hub of Somali unionism. And this was really clear to me. I was a complete newcomer to the area, so I had no further investigations into this particular issue. I had learned about Somalia in general. During my MA studies, I had written an MA thesis on peace and conflict dynamics in the region. But I really had not focused on any tensions between Somaliland, Puntland, or between Somaliland and the people who I would characterize as unionists in the SSC regions. So when I realized that there's this enormous political tension between, the political visions in Hargeisa and the political visions in Las Anod, I decided to do my PhD thesis on that, on what I then called in my academic language political identities in northern Somalia. Because I think, and I want to emphasize that what is at stake in northern Somalia is not qabil, qabil. So it's not clan versus clan versus clan. It's not Isaac versus Darod or Isaac versus Tubahante or something like that. I think it's really the political visions which are at stake in northern Somalia. And that's why I think it's also an important topic, really, for instance, for the Swedish political actors, or for any political actors in Europe to understand this issue. There is, so to say, there are different political visions. So there's a vision which is called Somaliland secession, so there's secessionism, and there's a vision which is called Somali unity. And the Somali unity is not just a clan thing. So this has also, both of these political visions, they have, of course, some relationship to clan, but they also have relationship to, what people experienced in the past, how they experienced the 1980s, how they experienced the last 30 years. So what I found really interesting, for instance, when I was in Hargeisa in 2002 and afterwards, people told me, this is a time of democracy, this is a time of peace. So in Hargeisa it was progress. But when you went to Las Anod or Buhotle or Teleh or even Baran, people said, burburka. So the 90s and even the time afterwards, when I was there in the 2000s, was the time of breakdown. So what was in Hargeisa and Berbera and Bur'a the time of development, was in Buhotle, Las Anod and Baran the time of breakdown. And so I think this tells you also something about how history is experienced, how the current situation is experienced. Anyway, I thought this is an important topic which one has to explore. So this is one of my old maps which I actually produced when I was a PhD student to illustrate the different, so to say, the different issues in the region. So you would have Somaliland, you would have Puntland, you would have the so-called contested areas, which is today largely SSC Khartoum. So that's important also to understand the current conflict. So it has a really long history. So as I said, when I was the first time in Buhotle, for instance, 2004, the Somali flag was on, you can go to the next slide, the Somali flag was hoisted on the marketplace, which you can see here. That's one of my pictures from Buhotle 2004. Buhotle was a village, was so, but it was no question that Buhotle is Somalia. So there was never ever a question for people in Buhotle that they live in Somalia. However, people in Hargeisa said that's Somaliland. But people in Hargeisa, the policymakers, never went to Buhodle, never ever. The Minister of Interior, the police commanders, they never put a foot into Buhodle. However, they claimed it's ours. People in Buhodle said, we are Somalia, and we are just waiting until Mogadishu becomes better. You know, inti ay hagakto, und es gechoben nach Buhodle. So, and the elders said, you know, this is, there was no question about it, there was not even a discussion, you know. But at the same time, which was also interesting, and it's also important for the situation today, you know, elders in Buhodle who live in close vicinity to Habercello, well, they said, we have no problem with Isaac. So we are giving birth to each other, we are marrying each other, we have our camels and our goats and so on, and we are grazing them together in the area. The only thing which we disagree is the question of secession. So I think it's also important to emphasize there's no ancient clan hatred. It's not always, again, Dulbahante versus Isaac or Dulbahante versus Habercello. That's not true. People in the region know how to live together, and you know, if you avoid the question of national politics, everything else can be sorted out. So they can marry each other, they can have their small conflicts over some kind of grazing grounds, they can make peace again. So they respect each other. Largely they respect each other. So the problem is more if you go to the level of national politics, when actors in Hargeisa get involved, or maybe also sometimes in the past at least when actors in Garowe got involved. You know, then problems arose which were kind of non-negotiable. On the ground, almost everything was negotiable, apart from the question of secession. But you know, for a nomad, even for a Habercello nomad, the question of Somaliland secessionism is not the most important thing. The most important thing is to get through with the animals, to keep peace, not to be killed. So these were the most important questions for all the nomads in the area, be they Habercello, be they Dulbahante. So, and I think this should be kept in mind, even today when we talk about, you know, Somaliland versus SSC. At the end of the day, people living together as neighbors, and they have to get along with each other. So we can continue. I mean, so this is part of what I would call the unionist identity. Then, of course, here you can see, if you speak Somali, you see the history of the struggle of the SNM is a story, the history of Somaliland written with the golden ink, right? So which tells you, this was a picture I took in Hargeisa, that was the office of the Hisbiga Kulmiye, which was back then opposition. Now it's of course a ruling party in Somaliland. But so the history of Somaliland is the history of the SNM written in golden ink. What does it tell you? It tells you that Somaliland actually narrowed down its own history. So if you think about it in broader terms, Somaliland is from Boroma to Boame. It's from Sela to Baran, to actually to Gagala, right? So to the far border next to Bosaso. So historically speaking, the British Protectorate of Somaliland was a rather huge area, and it was diverse. It had a diverse history. So however, in 1991, when Somaliland was declared as a secessionist state, led by the Somali National Movement, the SNM, you know, not immediately, but over the years, it became more and more the history of just one group. Now, the story which was told in Hargeisa was more and more just the SNM story. But you know, everybody, even the Isaac, even the senior people like Silanio, Mohammed Kahin, all these people, they knew that this is not the truth. They knew that the history of Somaliland, of the current Somaliland from 1991 onwards, it's much more complex. The people in Boroma were not supporting SNM. People in Las Anod and Buhodle were not supporting SNM. People in Baran were not supporting SNM. So why do you say the history of Somaliland is the history of SNM written in golden ink? This is, so to say, a deliberate narrowing of a much more complex history. And initially, when I realized that, in the time when I did my PhD research in 2004, I thought, you know, I remember going back and forth between Ergabo and Hargeisa, Las Anod and Hargeisa, Boroma, Hargeisa. So even I went to Garowe and Galkayo. So I remember when going back and forth, whenever I came back to my friends to Hargeisa, I spoke with my friends. And I said, you know guys, your stories are not the stories of people in Las Anod. Not even the stories of people in Ergabo. Not even the stories of Habariones and Habercello in Ergabo. because it's not only about Isaac. I mean, Isaac are also divided. So the stories are much more complex. And sometimes we had very good debates about it, sometimes some people became angry, but in general I had the feeling that, 20 years ago, or even 15 years ago, people in Hargeisa were still a little bit more tolerant. So there was more room for debate. You could tell some former SNM guy, actually your story is, not matching what people in the East are experiencing, and then this person could discuss with you, Even people like Mohammed Kahin would have been more open-minded back then. However, this has really changed. It became a self-fulfilling prophecy. It became a self-fulfilling prophecy which was in a way engineered by the political leadership in Hargeisa, which against its own history narrowed this whole history down. It's all SNM. We have been killed by Isir Bade. We have been oppressed. We had struggled against them. Even we have been British. Everybody knows they not have been all British. There was, even in the Darwish, there were Isaac. Of course, there were also Drubahante who were not Darwish. It's also a much more complex history. But every intellectual in the whole North would know the history is more complex. But they deliberately narrowed it down. People like Edna Aden, for instance, who I met several times, whenever she toured abroad, whenever she was in Europe, she was giving this extremely narrow presentation of what actually Somaliland is, which is only the story of one small group, not even the story of Isaac, but only the story of a group which is die-hard secessionist. So anyway, so we can go to the next slide. And I think so this whole history is in the background of this current conflict. So that's also why I actually decided to get involved on Twitter when the conflict in Las Arnold started earlier this year. I thought, okay, initially my motivation was to tell people, the younger generation who were sometimes not even born when I was the first time in Las Arnold, to tell them, hey, this conflict is not something which just arose in 2022. It's not something which has something to do with Jaboutawi and Mohammed Musabihi. Or it's not just Garat Jama Garat Ali or Garat Jama Garat Ismail who just recently made up some trouble. It's not about Al-Shabaab. I mean, that was the most ridiculous thing I actually had to engage with on Twitter. People saying the uprising was engineered by Al-Shabaab. I mean, sorry, this is completely unconvincing, because I had exactly the argument which was made by people in Las Arnold. This was the same argument 20 years ago, even before Al-Shabaab existed. So people in Buhot, as I said, they said exactly the same thing in 2004 as people said in 2023, literally. So I decided to get involved in order to correct some of this kind of war propaganda which was produced by the government in Hargeisa and by the supporters of this government. And this war propaganda actually was also spreading internationally. I remember in the first days of the conflict, when the bombardment started on 6 February 2023, and in the immediate days afterwards, the first thing which was actually produced by the government in Hargeisa was Al-Shabaab is involved. Actually, I think even on 31st of January, Musabihi gave a speech which was publicized widely, where he said, well, so it's the terrorists are involved in the uprising. And as you know, I mean, since you're living in Sweden, and I live in Germany, so we live in the West, if you say Al-Shabaab is involved, I mean, everybody gets nervous. Like, governments from Berlin to Brussels to Washington get nervous about that. Even Nairobi, Addis Abeba, because if Al-Shabaab is involved, then this is a different issue. So anyway, I felt a strong urge to counter that and to say everything you can see today, I mean, let's say from January 2023 onwards, everything you can see today is the old story. I mean, it's people want Somali unity. You don't need Al-Shabaab for that. And it's completely unconvincing that Al-Shabaab is in Las Arnold, because, I mean, the forces which were gathered in Las Arnold, the military officers who were kind of trying to build up SSC forces, many of them had been fighting Al-Shabaab in the past. Many of them had been part of the army of Puntland, or they even had been trained in southern Somalia to fight Al-Shabaab, and they had no sympathies for this type of extremism. And I was also absolutely convinced that the ordinary people in Las Arnold were not favoring Al-Shabaab in their town. You know, they may be conservative Muslims, they may be Al-Ittisam, but there's a big difference between Al-Ittisam and Al-Shabaab. And I found it actually very unresponsible by those people saying Al-Shabaab is involved, because I think they were calling for like a real disaster. They were calling for like a military intervention of Ethiopia, a military intervention at least by drones by the Americans. And we know what the fight against Al-Shabaab produced in southern Somalia. It actually did not end Al-Shabaab, it actually in some regards strengthened Al-Shabaab. So I would say counter-terrorism in southern Somalia, at least in the first few years, definitely strengthened Al-Shabaab. So I was really nervous about that. And then I think in general, the dynamics of the conflict, as you can see here, as you all know, the dynamics of the conflict, they produced a very positive outcome, because after the first couple of weeks, where everything was very tense, and it was very unclear who was going to succeed, it became more and more clear, I would say already maybe in March, April, it became more clear that at least the international community and the international observers are not buying into this war propaganda. So I was in contact with the American embassy in Mogadishu, in Djibouti. I was in contact with the special representative of the European Union for the Horn of Africa. And the signals I received in the communications with them was that actually they all do not really believe that it's Al-Shabaab. They also were very critical of the way how the Somaliland government handled the affair. There were more and more credible reports coming out of Las Anod by Doctors Without Borders and other international NGOs and organizations that actually war crimes are happening in the area. So, and I think, though I was actually quite, I was not relaxed, but I was positively surprised that that the international perception of this conflict is now going beyond this simple dichotomies, Somaliland versus Somalia, or Somaliland versus Al-Shabaab. So I think this was a great success also already in May, June. And then of course the military victory on 25th of August was, I think, quite surprising. But this was then, I mean, a game changer. This was an absolute changing moment of the politics in northern Somalia. And I'm very happy about that, to be honest, because I think this produced a situation which in a way is now in line with the feeling of the people which existed already since decades. So the current, if you like, military political situation in northern Somalia is a situation which you could already feel 20 years ago. So people were already wanting, to get rid of Somaliland domination. They were already willing to get strongly involved in Somalia 20 years ago. And today, now we have a situation on the ground where people in the regions Sool, Sanaag and Cayn are actually controlling their own territories and their own political visions, right? So I think, for some, and I say this consciously, though I'm almost a little bit sad for people for the leadership in Hargeisa. I'm not sad for the leadership in Hargeisa because I think the leadership really made extreme political mistakes. But I'm sorry for the young generation between Hargeisa, Bro and Berbera. Because as much as the young generation of SSC grew up with the idea of Somalia, the young people in Hargeisa, Bro and Berbera grew up with the idea of Somaliland. And this is not a crime. Was dadka Southern Shirkayar, way Kubarbar in Somaliland. That's what they know. That's the only thing they know. So you cannot condemn them for what they perceive as their reality. But you can, of course, criticize the political leadership, the intellectuals, so you can criticize those people that they have been selling lies to their own people, that they did not engage in an integrative political historical project. Why didn't they say all the people were not S&M? Everybody's welcome in Somaliland. We are rare wakoi. There is something, there is a Northern culture. So this is something which even Dulbahante and Gadabursi would subscribe. Even the old Dulbahante would say we have something which connects us as Northerners. No? But this could have been a chance to integrate, to say, hey, what does everybody want? So how can we really, for instance, consider the future of all Somalis based on our togetherness as Waqooyi? But this was not fostered. This was not engaged in by the political leadership in Hargeisa. They only produced a story about S&M. They only produced a divisive story. And this is what I would criticize, and why I think it's okay to say that the government in Hargeisa really has to go away, because they really mismanaged not only the relationship with the East, but they mismanaged also the relationship with their own the younger generation. They told them political lies in order to stay in power. And I think this is a real crime, so to say. I think it does. So we can stop here. Thank you very much.